All right, guys, we are recording, so let's get started. Man, it's good seeing all you dudes. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin. So today's topic, and this is going to be an open forum for everyone here, so feel free to ask questions. Write lots of notes down anytime we go through this. But in today's presentation, I want to talk about 5 things that I think are really salient and really important to Bitcoin. And I think these 5 ideas are going to really help us create a solid foundation for what is Bitcoin, right? First off, we're going to start off with where did it come from? Second, we're going to talk about how does it actually work? Third, we're going to talk about what is it? And I think it's also important for us to understand what is it not, because there's a lot of misinformation and bad information around Bitcoin. And last but not least is why does it matter? So let's just jump right in. So where did it come from? Bitcoin was created in 2008, October of 2008. It was built by at least, I'd say, 3+ men. And the reason is because I looked into the code, and when you look into the code, there's what I consider to be 3 different types of models and vernacular that's written there. So I think that it was a group of men who built it out, and it was launched in 2009 in January. So where did it come from? Who knows? I think it's 3+ men that built it, and the reason why it came out. It was an answer to the 2008 financial crisis. And they actually had a note in there talking about how the banks had screwed everything up. Okay? So let's talk about how does this work. When it comes to how Bitcoin actually works, there are 3 things that are the most important. Number 1, code is law. What code is law really refers to is the immutability. The immutability of the code, which means it cannot be changed. It cannot be changed. This is powerful, okay? So within this code are a couple ideas. So this immutable code, it's been put together by a bunch of people who said, hey, we need to make sure that it's not going to be changed at all. How do we do that? Number 2 is it's decentralized. With decentralization, people all over the world support the network. Meaning it is not owned by one person or a central entity. This is absolutely essential. This is the problem with the banks today. The problem with the banks today is the banks are a central entity that can change, add, remove, steal from you, take your money. Whenever you put your money in a bank, it's actually not your money. You know that, right? It's actually the bank's money. They're just loaning it back out to you. And so this decentralization is absolutely essential because that way no one person can change the code, right? And so no one can grab all the Bitcoin up. The third thing that is super important here is the mining, is the economic incentive. The economic incentive. The economic incentive when it comes to cryptocurrency is mining. And obviously that's the business that we're in. We're in the business of mining. And so there's a lot of nuances to Bitcoin in terms of how does it work, but I think these are the 3 most important facets. That the code cannot be changed ever, right? The code is not be changed ever, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. It's decentralized, meaning no one can ever take control of it. The people are the network. And there's an economic incentive that's mining. So let's break out mining. When it comes to mining gold, it's very simple. Oops, not a great color for that. When it comes to mining gold, the way that we mine gold is energy plus effort, or what we call work, right? So we mine gold through energy and effort. In Bitcoin, you guys know this. I use red. In Bitcoin, we use the same equation, energy plus work. The energy, obviously, is electricity, and the work is compute, right? What are we solving? We're solving math problems. So if anyone ever asks you, hey, what are your miners doing? Your answer is they're solving math problems. And you say, why? And they might say, why is that important for your miners to be solving math problems? And that's where you would say, because we want to ensure that there is an economic incentive, meaning that you receive value for the electricity and the work that you're willing to do. So we're essentially taking the entire gold model and say, hey, we need backhoes, we need trucks, we need dumpsters, we need supply chain, we need refineries, we need all of this stuff so that we can make gold and get value. In the Bitcoin white paper, and the code is law, we said, well, we're not going to be mining anything physically. How can we create something very simple or similar to gold in that it'll cost electricity and the work will be the math problems to solve it? And so what's the reward? Very simply, the reward is Bitcoin. The reward for solving the problem first is BTC. That's why we have lots of miners. So the more miners we have, the more chances we have at solving the problems, the higher, theoretically, it's not always true, but theoretically, the higher chance that we have to collect that Bitcoin. I'm going to stop right here. These are the two cores of where did it come from? Who knows? Don't care. It's a powerful, powerful economic tool. How does it work? Three things. Code, it's decentralized, and there's an economic incentive that makes sense for us to get into the game because it's valuable. Any questions around Bitcoin? How does it work? And where did it come from?
What math problems and who somebody paying to have a problem solved?
Great question. So these math problems are part of the code. The code says that there's these really complex math problems that we're going to shove out into the ether, and all of these miners are going to try to figure out that math problem as fast as possible. So whoever gets to the end of that maze or that math problem essentially gets rewarded with the block. And what is that block? It's a bunch of transactions. And so you are essentially, you say, hey, I solved the problem, which means I can now validate all these transactions. So because I can validate all these transactions, the system rewards me and says, thank you for your time, sir, and gives you Bitcoin. Question?
Theoretically, with it solving math problems and code is law, code can't be changed.
Yep.
Is there a pattern to the math problems?
Yes, there is a pattern to the math problems, and so that's called halving. So halving is when the overall difficulty of the mining problems gets greater and less Bitcoin can be mined. People are going to talk about halving. People are going to say, hey, you know, I heard that the last Bitcoin is going to be mined in 2142. It's like, your answer to them is, you'll be dead, it doesn't matter, is the answer. Okay. I have investors sometimes come to me and say, well, Peter, you know, what happens when there's no more Bitcoin to be mined? I say, you're going to be dead, it doesn't matter. Now is the time to earn as much Bitcoin and mine as much Bitcoin as we can today. That's a problem for my kids to solve. And if we do a good job, which we're going to talk about here, then they'll have plenty of Bitcoin to spend. Any other questions on these two ideas? Let's jump into the meat and potatoes. So what actually is Bitcoin? Let's get real simple. Bitcoin is a protocol. Now, Bitcoin is a protocol. Now, I always like to use a really simple example. Okay, the email protocol. Okay, what is email? We all get it. but let's break it down. Email is transfer of text value. That's what email is. Email is the free system where you can send value, text value, to your friends, textual information. Email protocol uses three things. POP3, right? They use IMAP, and they use SMTP. SMTP is the outbound server, right? So you guys are familiar with these, right? Now, the key to all of these in this email of text value is that all of this, why am I choosing all the wrong ones? All of this is free. It's free to use. You can sign up for an email account. You can sign up for the protocol of email so that you can transfer text value to anyone. It's free. Let that sink in. Email is free. It's so accepted that we kind of intrinsically don't even understand the value of it, right? So Bitcoin is a protocol just like email. Email is where we transfer the value of text. POP3, IMAP, SMTP is the outbound system, and it's free. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin, BTC, is the free transfer of value. We now have a protocol like email that's free to use. It's called Bitcoin. And so if anyone ever asks you, hey, man, I know you're getting into this Bitcoin thing, like it's like super complicated, I don't get it. Your answer to them is, hey, do you like sending free emails? And they'll say, yeah, I send free emails all the time. And that's where you say Bitcoin is a transfer of value. Instead of, let's sink this in, instead of sending a text value, now I can send him money. Now what's great about email, if we think about it, let's just say very pure, kind of a purist standpoint, email technically should have no intermediaries, right? If I want to send an email to you, I type in your email address, send it out, you get it. There should be no intermediaries between that reading our text message, right? In theory, correct, right? But that's the same idea with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, it's free transfer of value, and it can be, I'd say, pseudo, P-S-E-U, pseudo, why are none of these pens working, man? Pseudo anonymous. Okay, so Bitcoin is essentially a protocol. Two powerful things about this protocol. Number one, the internet is also a protocol. Email is a protocol. Bitcoin is a protocol. All three of these are expanding ad infinitum. Ad infinitum today. That's why this is so important. Protocols cannot be shut down. Email ain't going to be shut down. Internet's not going to be shut down. Bitcoin is not going to be shut down. I was actually quoted by CNBC in 2018. It was a powerful quote. Bitcoin cannot be uninvented. Let that sink in. Bitcoin cannot be uninvented. It's never going to go away. It is a protocol. It's a protocol with immutable code that's never going to go away, just like email. So, email is a transfer of text value. Bitcoin's all about free transfer of monetary value. Okay? Let's talk about what Bitcoin is not. Super, super important. I want to make sure that I dispel any of the kind of misinformation here. Bitcoin is often called a cryptocurrency. This is wrong. It is not a currency. Bitcoin is actually a crypto asset. How do we know this? In 2014, the IRS deemed Bitcoin as property, which means that it has a capital gains implication, cap gains, gains implication of 20% every time you transfer it. It cannot work as currency. Every time I buy Starbucks, I do not want to have a capital gains implication when I'm buying my coffee. And so this is a huge misnomer. Huge misnomer. Bitcoin is the only crypto asset on the planet. Everything else is a cryptocurrency, or what I like to call a crypto experiment. Because only Bitcoin has the immutability, the decentralization, it has the anti-fragility, which means it's been attacked hundreds, thousands of times and survived. It is also thermodynamically secure with all the hardware back end, like all the miners that we got. Okay? So people sometimes ask me if I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I would say yes, because it's the best crypto asset. However, I'm okay with making money on crypto experiments or cryptocurrencies. Okay? But Bitcoin is a crypto asset. Please never miss this. Understanding that Bitcoin is a crypto asset, not a currency, puts you ahead of 99 out of 100 people in the curve. And the reason why it'll put you ahead on the curve is because you'll know what to do with Bitcoin when all these fools are spending it like I did in 2017 buying a Lamborghini. I learned a very expensive lesson here. Okay? So, why does it matter that it's a crypto asset and not a cryptocurrency? Pay attention here. Here's the juice, guys. Because it's a crypto asset, this is going to be the most valuable asset on the planet in the next 10 to 20 years. Period, bar none, full stop. Why is this? We know that there are 21 million total to be mined. How do we know this? Because code is law. In the code, it says there's only going to be 21 million mined ever, and the last mined is going to be 2142. Okay? So we know the total. We know the total. So with this total that is going to be mined, and by the way, in circulation, we have 18 to 19 million in circulation today. With this total of 21 million, we know that demand is high and supply is low. This creates a deflationary economic policy. With this deflationary economic policy, because it is a crypto asset, not a cryptocurrency, this asset will be the most valuable asset on the planet, and here is where you can put a flag in the mud and say, Peter said it. I believe that Bitcoin is going to become the index asset. It's going to become the index asset for the entire planet, also known as the meta asset. Every other asset out there is variable. Real estate, gold, silver, precious metals, vanity investments like paintings, cars, boats. All of these are variable. Because all of those are variable, and this Bitcoin is the only one with a knowable total cap, everything else, gold, silver, precious metals, cars, boats, buildings, real estate, it's all going to end up weighing against the index asset Bitcoin. If we look at the economics of this, and backtesting shows this, in my opinion, we will see by 2026 potentially a 400,000 Bitcoin, and by 2030, I foresee us hitting a $1 million per coin. Final boss on why does this matter? Let's do red. Us, METAFI. Prosperity for all. Why does Bitcoin matter? Because having 1 to 3 Bitcoin owned individually by each of you guys, you will be able to create generational wealth for your kids. That is my goal. My goal is to collect, now I have a lot, but my goal is to collect as many Bitcoins as I can, because when this becomes the meta index asset for the rest of the world in the next 20, 30, 40 years, the interest that my daughter will have on that one Bitcoin, she'll be able to live off the rest of her life on. We are truly going to live, as METAFI, our slogan, prosperity for all. That's why it matters to us. And that's why I want, with your guys' help, to be able to bring this out to the world and say, hey, this is what Bitcoin is. This is why it's important. It's just like email. It's the value transfer protocol of the future. It's not currency. Don't do that. Hold it. Save it. Because why? Because when you hold it and save it, they're going to be flipping buildings for, $90 million, and they're going to be weighing against the index asset of Bitcoin when they price it. Okay? That's why I dedicated my life to Bitcoin in 2011. When I purchased my first Bitcoin and I got in this, I lost 15 pounds in the first 30 days. I went down the rabbit hole. I started coding, forking it. I said, this is the future of the financial future for my kids. And so prosperity for all, I think the last thing I'll say here, and I'll open up for questions for you guys. Us as men, I'm just going to speak to you as men here. As men, my two duties for my family are very simple, especially my kids. I'll just say my kids. Financial literacy, and love is what I owe my kids. They owe me nothing. I brought them into this world. So my job is to give them prosperity in terms of Bitcoin and financial literacy. Love and engagement is the other part. So for us as men, with our kids and our wives and our families at home, this is what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to your soul. That's why Bitcoin matters, because we want to bring prosperity to us and ourselves and our families, and then to the nation and to the world. Make sense? Any questions on Bitcoin, what it is, what it's not, why it matters at the end of the day? Hey, John, I just noticed you. You hear all that?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah,
Oh.
I was trying to get off. Yeah, I came in a few minutes late, but yeah, I'm good. Appreciate it.
Cool. Glad you're here, brother. Any other questions from you guys?
How does the current day economy affect the rise?
Great question. So the question is, how does the economy affect Bitcoin? Well, it's going to affect Bitcoin in many cases is a correlated and non-correlated asset. So there are correlations to major market moves. For example, we're seeing some semblance of correlation right now with Russia and Ukraine. Let's be honest, war is always good for Bitcoin, because the more the disruption happens in nation states, the more people move to sovereign value that they can control, as opposed to a bank that's taking their money. And so what we're seeing now is this bump in Bitcoin is due to the Russian-Ukraine kind of unknowns about what's going on. So when it comes, I would say if anyone were to ask you, how does Bitcoin work with the markets, you'd say it generally follows the line of large market movements in nation states. Right now, it's too small to really be affected by things that are smaller than that. Brandon might have another comment on that, and Jaime, you might have another comment on that differently, so you guys can always chime in as well.
Yeah, I think your scope of time frame has to be greatly increased. You'll see Bitcoin, express volatility in the meantime. That's good because you can buy the dip.
Yep.
You have to have a very long-term view on this Bitcoin thing. You can't be a get-rich-quick scheme. Some people do happen to get rich quick, but that should not be the goal. The goal should be looking for opportunities to buy more and just hold it.
I mean, I have run so many scenarios, guys, around a $500,000 Bitcoin, $1 million Bitcoin. We're in a position right now, and with John and our wonderful investors, that they are floating us to accrue these, right, and mine these, so that at the right liquidation points, maybe like 100 grand or something, we'll be able to start covering some of our investment and these types of things. But at the end of the day, if we really have the option, you would never want to sell this shit. You just want to hodl it. You just want to hold it all the way as much as you can. And then use some of it as what we're going to be doing to build software and services so that we can de-risk that asset and the cost of holding it. So I hope this was helpful, guys. Yeah? Pragmatic?
Extremely.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to stop